So Tom, you were recently at a research facility.
Correct.
And you were asked an interesting question. They were dealing with test and development equipment. And the question was regarding the applicability of the machinery directive, and whether it applied to the equipment they were using. What was your response?
Yeah, entirely. So there's a couple of nuances here. Strangely, it seems, I'd like this kind of not to be the case, but many people aren't aware that the machinery directive in the EU and the supply of machinery safety regulation here in the UK is applicable to machinery made for your own use. And being put into service. So most people think that it's just the case that it only applies to machinery being placed on the market, but that's not where the scope's limited to. So that was the first item that was potentially new to them. So recognizing that if they're putting it into service, they need to comply with these regulations as well. So that was the first one to discuss. And then the other one in there is an exclusion for laboratory equipment. And the Machinery Directive Guide provides a little bit more information there because obviously we're not talking about all laboratory equipment. But what we're talking about is kind of test equipment that is built for R&D purposes. It actually says kind of within a laboratory. Yeah, it's interesting to try and work out what that means exactly. But for a temporary period of time. So it can be built, it can be tested, it can be used for whatever its purpose is, and then kind of disassembled, decommissioned, and then removed. So the question there is, you need to get into the nuance of how you're going to define temporary because it's not stipulated in there for sure. But if you're going to build something for test purposes that is testing something else, and you're going to simply run that like a piece of machinery and you've effectively put it into service, yes, the Machinery Directive applies.
Okay.
And my other comment here is, and I'd say this for standards as well, the Machinery Directive and the use of harmonized standards are a really helpful way to safeguard your machinery. So I would actually recommend, instead of trying to find exemptions and kind of force the exemptions to fit your scenario, this is a really good framework for ensuring that your operatives are safe. So I'd recommend on the whole following the Machinery Directive and actually using the standards.
Yeah.